49 people selected to write a constitution, wrote a constitution. 40 people in the Supreme Military Council promulgated the constitution for us. Under General Abubakar, government in which I sat, I was in executive council. I never saw the draft constitution. And I was Minister of Information. It was my responsibility to publicize it to the country. On the day of swearing in of Obasanjo, we didn't have a copy of the constitution. I didn't know who was printing it. And my ministry was supposed to pay for the printing. And Obasanjo was sworn on a constitution that had not been read by anybody. And the National Assembly could not be constituted until 4 days after his swearing in, because there was no clean copy of the Constitution. You cannot build on quicksand. And the country cannot live on falsehood. The owners of the country, as represented by their leaders in the social cultural groups that formed a desire to be one country, have to be constituted into the kind of conference that President Jonathan summoned. They have the legal authority to speak on behalf of their various people that we want to be part of one country on the basis of the following rules. Unless we revisit that abnormality and historical abnormality, we will never have the ground norm. We will never have a constitution that conjures the loyalty of the people.
In toward one Nigeria is, we can agree, you have your own leader. Whether anybody accepts it or not, the only leader with a powerful mantle of leadership from the eastern part of Nigeria is Nnamdi Kanu. There is a difference between ruler and a leader. You may have governors, you may have senators. Those are your rulers because they are using power to force you to do what you don't like. But Nnamdi Kanu, when he tell you everybody should not go out tomorrow, you people refuse to go out, not because you are afraid of Nnamdi Kanu, but because you believe he cannot choose something that can hurt you.
Okay.
That is what we call leadership. And equally, each and every region should have this kind of people. Then we should come together. We are Nigeria. We will enjoy our strategic location in terms of business. You are Biafran, you are moving into northern Nigeria to do your business. You don't need visa because we are a Nigerian. You are northerner, you want to go to Biafra to do your business. You don't need visa because you are Nigerian. But the resources of Biafra should be controlled by Biafrans. Okay. The security architecture of Biafra should be provided by Biafrans. The resources of Oduduwa Republic should be controlled by Oduduans. The security architecture and the economic policy as well as customary law should be an indigenous system that a Yoruba man will never feel that his culture, his history is being tempered under a system that is not fair and just to him. The same thing in northern Nigeria. Northerners should have a system that is working for them. There is no problem for people of different history, people of different religion, people of different background to be under the one system. But the difference is, can we accept our differences and live in peace and harmony? Can respect of one another be part of our differences? Wherever you see chaos, wherever you see conflicts, wherever you see crisis, it was initiated by injustice. If the Biafran people, they feel equally treated like other people from the other region, there should be no question of cessation.
Okay.
So Nigeria should have a single army. This our army should be Nigerian army. But the policing, there should be nothing like a Nigerian police. There should be nothing like a Nigerian custom. We should have Biafra regional custom, the northern regional custom, because if a northerners they don't want to beer and alcohol in their region, they forbid it. It was not a it's not an exhibit if you go to Biafra land. So therefore, Biafran custom have the right to clear it to their own land. But if you bring somebody from Kano to clear what will enter Biafra land, whatever he see that the tamper his culture will touch his brain, will change his psychological thinking, it will now cause confusion.
Okay, thank you.
I'm coming. Yeah. Those who created this system, they don't mean well for the North. They don't mean well for Nigeria. They don't mean well for Biafran, and they don't mean well for this thing. For them, Nigeria is just like a company for them, and choosing a general manager called president to put him here, and he has no power to implement any policy. If you allow me to be a president of Nigeria today, and Nigerians choose to abide by what I will say, by the year 2040, Nigeria will be among the most powerful nations in the world, not only in Africa. They say we are the giant of Africa. We are only sleeping giant. We are suffering like other African countries. We are suffering diseases like other African countries. We are suffering from poverty like other African countries. We are suffering from illiteracy like other African countries. We are suffering from corruption like other African countries. Then what makes us giant?
Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay, we are what we do, not what we say we are.
Thank you.
And we are what we represent to you, not what you perceive we are.
Allah go bless you.
We need leaders who understand what Africa need. At this moment, what Africa need is leadership, not necessarily democracy, because we don't know democracy before the coming of these colonial masters. And if you look at what they are offering or practicing in their own country, it is not necessarily democracy, it is their national interest. So we as Africans should be in a system that we will relate to any country, whether that country is Europe or whatever that country is, but we can only relate to that country based on mutual respect, where we are benefiting from the relationship, they are also benefiting.
When we talk about how far Nigeria has progressed, I think it would also be fair to talk about how far we could not progress because of the manner in which we came together. The North was the hegemonic group. It had a virtual veto over the two southern states. A veto in the sense that in terms of size, it was virtually 3 times bigger than the two southern regions. And therefore, it meant whoever was going to run Nigeria was going to be linking the north and one of the two southern regions. The NCNC and the Action Group, the two southern states, could not work together. The NCNC and the NPC, the Northern People's Congress, had reached an agreement by 1958 as to how they would come together. But they could not, properly speaking, form a government until they had discussed how to share Nigeria. And the decision they reached, I keep saying this, the decision they reached was to give virtually all the big jobs that will be vacated by colonialists to one of the political parties, because in their constituency, that is to say in the Eastern constituency, they had a lot of educated people who could fill the jobs. The North made the concession, but that was also why Zik, whose party really ought to have produced the prime minister because of the number of seats and votes they got, had conceded that the North would produce the prime minister and the leader, the NCNC, would produce a ceremonial president. That changed the chemistry of the Nigerian nation. But beyond that was this, that the regions that needed to be created were also well known from the very beginning. It was not only the 3 regions. All those who were campaigning for self-governorship in the north, in the east, and in the west were largely prevented from doing so. By the time the Civil War forced us to get to that point, we still refused to take the right decision. Why? Because by 1959-1960, the division of the Nigerian state began with 1, all the military installations going to one region, all the railway extensions going to one region, the Kainji Dam going to one region, the iron and steel industry going to one region, because of that share out that I spoke of at the beginning. Because all the big jobs, the big railway men were from the east. The big directors were from the east. Even in the military, the officer corps was commanded by the east. It is usually described as a state. I mean, there was a country, Chidon Achebe talked very approvingly of the domination of the East at that time. But that is actually the point. Although they had all the big officers in these organizations, the ground on which all of them functioned lay where the veto holder was. And that veto holder managed to have enough soldiers to keep a propaganda of arms in place that made it impossible for any changes to take place. Even if you had a conference today, there is bound to be a veto holder input that will change it. How to change it has been the central issue of Nigeria. How do you restructure in the face of a veto holder who would always intervene to make sure that you don't get a change?
There are Southerners who have been exercising veto in the course of Nigerian history.
I will explain
so
this.
It's not as if
No, I will explain this. The average educated Nigerian, in order to be shown as a liberal, very freedom-loving, democratic person, is always trying to be nice to the North. There is no reason to be nice to the North. They are our brothers, and we have a right to fight over the issues that we need to change. It is no longer right to be nice to the North, because in this particular case, I give you a very good example now. You have a governor who tells you that all the non-Nigerian Fulanis must be catered for by the Nigerian state and actually argues against the respect for international boundaries, argues against national policies on the grounds that one ethnic group, which just happened to be the ethnic group with which the British worked out an alliance, should permanently remain a freeholder, moving across all boundaries, respecting no laws and things of that nature. If you are talking about all Nigerians having a right, that is a claim to a divine right that you are not allowed to touch unless you belong to that ethnic fraction in Nigeria. If that ethnic fraction had the means to create a nation, they would have created one by now. The truth is that between the Fulani and the Hausa, there is a very badly structured sense of nationality. The way people talk about it, those who know, they will say a pulo is a pulo and a kado is a kado. It means that although they speak the same language, they have not managed to create a sense of nationality, and they have imposed that in every other part of Nigeria and in every Nigerian conference and situation. We just don't need, we don't have to be over liberal. Let us confront the issues. When you allow a small minority to control a majority, as I once said in this station, they can only rule by falsehood and violence. Well, and that I have just one thing to point out properly. Do you know that the Bagi of Nigeria, the Gwari, they are divided between 6 different states and have never been allowed to come together to form a state, whereas they are contiguous. But I tell you something, when you now have a governor, in fact 2 governors, Bauchi and Kebbi, when you now have 2 governors insisting that an ethnic group that does not even belong to Nigeria should be given special rights in Nigeria, and you find that those who are already in Nigeria, like the Gwari and many other ethnic groups, I will come to that, they are not even allowed to come together as an ethnic group. You will know that the source of the crisis is very strong. The agitation for state creation and for changing the boundaries of the various states began as early as 1904. The Ilorin people were already demanding to join their kith and kin in the western region. It never happened.
Things are presently. There is so much injustice in the system. It is known that the opens of Kogi do not belong to North Central. It is known that this Zulu area of Kebbi State do not belong to the Northwest. It's known Southern Kaduna, of course, does not belong to Northwest either. Southern Yobe, Southern Bauchi, Southern Borno, Gombe. It's known, but they are just mixed together where they will have no voice, where they will have no rights. Let's face the reality that these people belong to the Middle Belt. That's why they are.
Where there is homogeneity of traditional culture,
everything.
You know,
they just are spread into 5 states. There's no reason for it. It's a means of disenfranchising them so that they cannot.
They spread. Their population so thin.
They are so large, but there are minorities everywhere.
Exactly.
So we have to cure that. Once we keep sitting over this injustice, we will never have peace, no matter what happens. So let's face reality.
So mention each of these. I can see. I mean, it's
so in the region now. First of all, nomenclature is very wrong. Nothing like South. Okay. So now we corrected the nomenclature. There is Northeast, there is Northwest, there is East Middle Belt. West Middle Belt. Okay. And whether we like it or not, East Middle Belt is essentially mainly Christian area. Benue, Plateau, Taraba, Adamawa, majority. In the western part, Niger, Middle Belt, Niger, Southern Kebbi, north of Kogi, is essentially also flavored Muslim. It's just a fact. We can't change the way we are. So then those ones belong to 2 regions in effect. The western region is known to be desirous of having its own region. The south, the same. The southeast, the same. Across the area, there's parts of Benin that feel they are part of southeast. There are parts of maybe rivers, people feel they are southeast. The map is not set in granite. It's not set that cannot be changed. Absolutely. The map is for discussion. There'll be 1 year long program for people to decide where they want to belong on either divide. It's not that say I'm a military general that have decreed. I just announced on NTA that this is what should be. No. But it's a thoughtful outcome of what we have done.
A result of deliberations.
But then people are free to move to one side or the other side. The freedom is there.